Okay, so to begin this module, it helps just to do a little bit of a recap on our different connectivity options so you can choose the right type for your scenario that perhaps you'll be given in the exam. And in the previous module, we covered these in more detail. So this is really just a recap. Well, first of all, we have site-to-site VPN again. So this allows us to connect our on-premises data center through a VPN device to a VPN gateway in Azure, essentially extending our network to Azure through that VPN gateway, but it does go across the internet. Same for multi-site. We could do this for multiple data centers connected to the same VPN gateway. Also goes across the internet. Now it is secure via IPsec, it's using that IPsec tunnel, but it's something to consider there. Next, we have ExpressRoute, and when you think ExpressRoute, think of two things that would lead you to this over site-to-site VPN. One is privacy of data, so if you don't want to go over the internet and you want that extra layer of security, this is a dedicated circuit, and you can choose whether to pair with the public services or just the private services in Azure. The other thing is bandwidth. If you want a more reliable, higher throughput, but just more reliable throughput, as opposed to going through the internet, ExpressRoute will give you that. The next type of connection that Microsoft wants you to know about is something called a hybrid connection. And essentially, this allows a web app, say on the left-hand side of the diagram here, to talk to the data in our data center. So perhaps we're using public cloud services in Azure, like web apps and mobile services that need to talk to a SQL server on premises. Well, a hybrid connection is the way we can go about doing this. And a hybrid connection can be shared across web apps and mobile apps. So you can use one hybrid connection there. And all web app frameworks are supported, as you'll see in a moment. Now, if we look at this from a scenario perspective, there's a number here. First of all, you might have a .NET framework that wants to access a SQL server. You could have a .NET framework, access to HTTP services with a web client. We could have PHP access to a SQL server, MySQL server. Java access to a SQL server, MySQL and Oracle, and Java access to HTTP and HTTPS services as well. Now, if you look at all of these are predominantly web and mobile type application frameworks that, again, all need to access some element of data services that they haven't got available to them in the public cloud and need to go back on premises using a hybrid connection for this. The other thing to note is that there is a hybrid connection manager that you saw in the diagram previously, and it can be installed on the following operating systems. So it's Windows Server 2008 R2. Note that you need .NET Framework 4.5 and the Windows Management Framework 4.0 in addition. You also can do it on Windows Server 2012 with the Windows Management Framework 4.0 or higher being required. And finally, you can install it natively on Windows Server 2012 R2. And providing you have all of that set up, then you can set up that hybrid connection. And that's really it for this module. It's a bit of a short one, but the idea is if you've read and listened to everything in the previous modules, it's really about just knowing, okay, when do I use site-to-site? When do I use ExpressRoute? When could I even use point-to-site connection that we covered previously as well? And then when does this hybrid connection manager come into play? And if you just understand the use cases and read the dialogue and the questions, you'll definitely be able to get through it just fine.